Hello everyone, Warren here again with the Peach State Prime Transformers channel. And boy, do we have a review for today. We have the ever elusive Studio Series 86 Megatron. This figure came out late last year, second half of last year, and has just been a bear to find out there. You know, he's a leader class. Current going rate for leader class is about $60. Been selling upwards of $90 to $150 on the aftermarket. Thankfully, GameStop came through for me. Had one on the shelf for $65. So $5 more than standard retail. But, you know, we're going to see if it's been worth every penny or not. And how he stacks up against other Megatrons. All claiming to be that G1 Megatron. So, stick with us, and we're going to put Megatron here through the test. Alright, so starting with Megatron's robot mode, I have absolutely no complaints. This is the Megatron we had on the G1 animated series. This is the Megatron that's walked off the screen from the 1986 Transformers the movie. He's Megatron in every sense of the word here. He has his big old, you know, arm cannon, his fusion cannon there. He has all the details, you know, on his abdomen, that nice clean chest, save for the Decepticon logo. He even has the back part of, you know, his stock for his cannon. You look closer at this face sculpt. I mean, that is Megatron. You got the red eyes. The face is dead on. You have, you know, what I guess you'd call the eyebrows there. Just looks absolutely amazing. And, you know, you look at the back of this figure is super clean. You know, you got some hinges. You really don't have a backpack. The only thing that would make you believe that this Megatron does not turn into a gun are these couple treads on the back of his legs. Other than that, you know, you would swear you had a Megatron that had the classic transformation. You know, so let's look at how he scales with some notable releases here. And then we'll do a Megatron versus Megatron grand comparison. So, the first one we're going to look at is his arch nemesis, Optimus Prime. And to be more specific, this is 86, Studio Series 86 Commander Class Optimus Prime, and who is very much a leader class without the trailer. And these two scale perfectly together. I can't stress how perfect they are matched here. Megatron is, you know, maybe, get him closer there, you know, is maybe half an inch taller. Megatron always was bigger. So, that works perfectly. But, you know, for Optimus being a truck, he's also big and bulky, just like Megatron is. So, these two are perfect companions, or perfect rivals, but perfect companions for your shelf, that is. So, that's a great, you know, size comparison there, dead on scale. The next one is going to be a kind of an evolutionary example here, or comparison, and that is Galvatron. This was the Galvatron that was released, I believe it was back in Kingdom, for the War for Cybertron series. And, you know, he does have that little bit of battle damage deco. He was re-released without it not too long ago. But as you can see, these two, this one also being a leader class, they're perfect. I mean, you see, again, I mean, Megatron may be just, I mean, actually, they're about the same height. Megatron, again, maybe half an inch taller, but no big deal. But, you look at these two side by side. Actually, let's switch them here. I would totally buy that this guy here, Galvatron, is a reformatted version of Megatron as presented right here, in this classic Studio Series mold. So again, just perfect scaling there. A perfect, transformation, if you want to look at it that way. So that's dead on as well. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the actual other Megatron toys, specifically G1 Megatron. And again, I have tons of Megatron toys. You have tons of Megatron toys. We can't compare them all, so we're going to stick with the ones that really aim to be Generation 1 Megatron, or a representation of G1 Megatron. So we're going to start with G1 Megatron. G1 Megatron being a somewhat controversial figure. Now, you'll notice I do have mine transformed with the gun barrel in the back versus along his waist. I just think that looks a little bit better. But you'll see, I mean, again, like I said with Optimus when I was reviewing him, kind of grandpa, grandson, father, son, however you want to look at it. I will say, and this is a bit comical, I feel that G1 Megatron's cannon over here really does kind of dwarf Studio Series Megatron's cannon. However, this suits, Studio Series Megatron just fine. And of course, the show came after the toys and all that. And, G1 Megatron is what he is. However, this really represents the character we all grew up with. I love G1 Megatron. He was a figure I was chasing for years upon years. And finally got him. So it was a bit of a legendary find when that finally happened when I was younger. Of course, the controversial part is G1 Megatron turns into a gun. Studio Series Megatron turns into a tank when he's supposed to be representing the character that turns into the gun on the show. So, we'll get more into that when we get into vehicle mode here. Now, this next one is a bit more of a departure from anything else we'll look at today. This is Classics Megatron. Classics Megatron is notable as he does turn into a gun. However, it looks more like a Nerf gun. And as such, you got all this neon green and purple going on. So, yeah, I mean, he is supposed to represent G1 Megatron, albeit an updated version. Get a closer look there. However, kind of the sacrifices made, he kind of became his own thing versus a true representation of the classic Megatron like we have here in Studio Series. The next one is also a leader class, albeit a very large leader class. This is Combiner Wars Megatron. One of the first entries into making a G1 Megatron that really looks like a big old tank. I was a big fan of this figure when it first came out, and it's still, it is a nice figure all on its own. You'll see, there's no mistaking, he is indeed a tank. He has treads on his back of his legs, and these are actually rubber treads, and, we'll try to take a look at that in vehicle mode here, too. One thing that always drove me bonkers with this Combiner Wars Megatron, though, and you'll see Studio Series does it right, is the chest. And it has to do with the transformation. You got this big old, it's kind of squashed down there where the Decepticon logo is. On your Studio Series, it's nice and flush, just like we saw them in the show. Both have good head sculpts. Of course, we have a slightly bigger head on Combiner Wars Megatron. I do think that our Studio Series here does work better with the arm cannon. Because this one, it's also the tank cannon, turret, blaster, whatever you want to call it. But, this one also doesn't scale as well as Studio Series to other figures. But again, a good, solid, standalone release. And you do have that, abdomen area that Megatron's known for. Now, quite possibly, the, biggest comparison everyone's drawing is this one here. This is the ever so overused War for Cybertron mold Megatron. I believe this is specifically the Earthrise version, which has, maybe 40% less battle damage than the Siege version. He is, again, a tank, and that is a little bit more evident on the back here, where you see these big old treads that have D16 plastered on them, which, of course, is a callback to Megatron's numbering in the Japanese toy line, and of course later on used for his name in Transformers 1 before he's known as Megatron. Both of these are very comparable outside of those treads and tank pieces. Both have that abdomen. Studio Series pulls it off with more paint apps. They both have that clear chest. As far as cannons, I gotta say, I think I like the cannon on the War for Cybertron one a little bit more, because this front piece is a little longer than this one on the Studio Series. That's not to say that it looks bad at all. On the Studio Series, it's just something to note. You do have the darker, of course, battle-worn and scratched-up legs on the War for Cybertron version, versus that nice kind of gray look, and again, just that overall clean look of, the Studio Series. And of course, we have that back cannon here, which is something that really makes this one stand apart. They both kind of pull off a little bit of fakery when it comes to teasing a potential gun mode with these little parts up here that would become kind of the back piece of the trigger, or, where your hand would rest. But yeah, I do have to say, and again, we'll look at the tank modes, but I do think the Studio Series Megatron tops the Earthrise. Alright, here we have Studio Series 86 Megatron in his tank mode. It's alright. Not my favorite tank Transformer, or even tank Megatron, for that matter, but it does what it needs to do. The thing I don't really like about it is this gappiness right up under here. And I checked and rechecked the directions, and I didn't see where I skipped a step anywhere. If I did, please leave a comment in the comment section, because that seems off to me. I mean, it works, but why would there be a gap there, especially on a Studio Series figure? Tell me that's alright. I mean, you look underneath, everything is nice and clean. You have some wheels for it to roll. Most importantly, and you'll see why I'm bringing this up now, you don't see Megatron's head in here. So he doesn't have what I like to call GoBot syndrome. It does what it needs to do. Again, I really give kudos on that bot mode, because he looks like he should transform into a gun. And you don't really see all these tank pieces. You really had to unhide all those. For comparison, let's bring out Combiner Wars Megatron. And this is big old Combiner Wars Megatron. This big, mostly silver tank. A little bit of metallic to it. Does have a missile in the barrel. You can see he does completely dwarf Studio Series Megatron. Let's look at it like this. Here, let me back that camera up a little. So, Combiner Wars does went out when this Combiner Wars figure came out. I believe he was about $40. Certainly not that anymore, and the robot mode definitely suffers. But tank mode is a win for Combiner Wars, with one exception. Flip him upside down. This man has full-on GoBot syndrome. So that's really disappointing for a Megatron toy. So outside of that, I think this tank mode is awesome. Earthrise Megatron, by comparison, I'll be honest, they're roughly about the same size. Let me back that camera up again. Earthrise Megatron does have a little bit longer of a barrel, simply because he has the sword accessory that comes with him. However, as with Combiner Wars Megatron, GoBot syndrome, where you can see the head underneath the vehicle mode, which, that I take off a lot of points for that. So, and I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of how much black was on the Earthrise mode version. And again, this one was redecoed. I've lost count. Everybody has. So, looking at the Studio Series Megatron, his bot mode is where he really shines. Blech. The tank mode is not bad. It just could be better. But again, it does what it needs to do to give us a convincing Megatron that can transform into something. Since, guys, let's face it. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room here. Megatron will never be a gun again by Hasbro. So, you might need to say that again and again in the mirror if you're not ready to just accept Megatron as a tank. Personally, I like Megatron as a tank better than a handgun. Yes, my childhood, growing up, watching G1, wanting that G1 toy and eventually getting it, I understand. He always will be classically known as, as a handgun for his alt mode. However, let's think about it. Megatron is essentially supposed to be the Emperor of Destruction, the leader of the Decepticons, just a complete destructive force on his own merits. And when you have an alt mode that requires somebody else hold you, point you, and pull a trigger, why do you have followers? Why are you the leader of the evil Decepticons if you can't hold your own? And yes, he could in bot mode, but in alt mode, a handgun, forget it. And mass shifting, it is what it is. Soundwave does it, Blaster does it, Shockwave sometimes, but I don't know. Megatron makes a whole lot more sense as a big, imposing tank. And look at it this way. A tank is a gun, a big gun on wheels. So he's still a gun, just a different kind of gun with wheels. So that is my hot take on it. Again, my favorite tank one outside of G2 Megatron, but a tank that is supposed to represent G1 Megatron, I have to give it to Combiner Wars, despite that disgusting display of a head underneath here. I think this one has the best tank mode. Best overall toy, I do need to give it to our Studio Series, just because that bot mode is so perfect. And again, the tank mode accomplishes what it needs to do. Transformation is simple enough, you know, and without being a, you know, it's a little challenging. It's more intermediate, you know, but it's fun nonetheless, and it's pretty intuitive. This one here, Earthrise, again, is not a bad toy. We haven't had many really just bad Megatron toys. This one was just overused, and, you know, I would like the deco a little different, which, frankly, there probably was one release. I'm pretty sure this mold was used like 25 times, and I'm not exaggerating. Look it up on the wiki. So somewhere around there. And, you know, it's all right. It was a little, I had to look up some guides to help me get it transformed because it's been a while. It wasn't quite as intuitive as I thought. But again, if this is your Megatron, if you can't afford the Studio Series or find one, and you have one that looks enough like G1 Megatron for your liking, then this will do just fine. But, again, my favorite is going to be the Studio Series. All right, here's your group shot of the Megatrons we took a look at today. Of course, with our latest entry, the Studio Series being up front. And again, in that bot mode, he is definitely the superior one. A great new addition to the collection. But again, some of these others are not bad additions at all. Especially for when they joined the ranks, you know, when they were released. You'll notice I left Combiner Wars Megatron in tank mode just because it looks so good. I'm going to display him like that for a little bit. But anyways, again, here's a closer look at that new Studio Series Megatron. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Taking a look again at Studio Series 86 Megatron. Again, just a very awesome toy. You know, tank mode's alright. I'll take it for this bot mode any day, though. Just perfect. And the fact that he transforms. And again, you know, don't mean to be so harsh about the, you know, the reality of Megatron not being a gun again. It's just, I don't see it happening. So until that time comes where they find a way to release a Megatron that looks this good as a gun that's made by Hasbro, not third party, this may be my last Megatron I need to get that resembles G1 Megatron for quite some time. So there you have it. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to give it a like here on YouTube and leave a comment. You know, what are your thoughts on Studio Series Megatron, the other Megatrons I showed, tank versus gun? Feel free to leave that comment and, you know, keep it civil when it comes to the alt mode. I've seen some pretty heated debates about that on social media. Of course, subscribe. If you like to see more content like this and other Transformers, reviews, news, you know, thoughts on upcoming releases, you name it, events when they come up. And if you like other fun stuff, please consider checking out my other channel, simply called Peach State Prime. You know, covers all sorts of other non-Transformers and some Transformers, you know, stuff that I collect. Special events including conventions and festivals, tourist attractions, you know, so a little bit of a travel vlog as well. You know, fun places to eat, fun places to shop, including collectible stores. So, think you'll enjoy it, so feel free to check that out. Outside of that, thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you have a great day, and God bless.